Good morning, everybody, or good day, depending on where you are hopping on from. We are so glad you're here with us for another Friday Zoom audio for introduction purposes. I am Jan Jeremias, and I've spent the last number of years focusing on health for myself and with my clients and friends and family. I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I've merged, my educational background in science and a more holistic approach to help people live to their optimum health and well-being. I love these gatherings, which Mary Jane and I have, shared ourselves and our hearts in. It's truly a gift to be here and to share these conversations with you all. Our goal or our intention is that we share with full hearts and we create an environment and a community that's based on connection and kindness. So welcome, everybody, and I'll pass it to you, Mary Jane.
Thank you, Jan. As always, it's a blessing to be here with all of you, and a special blessing to be here with Jan, my co-collaborator in this space. And as she mentioned, we do have the intention that this be a space where everyone feels welcome and safe to share, and that's what we're built on, and also the idea that kindness starting with self first is the way forward. So I am Mary Jane McQueen, and for those that do know me, I apologize, you have to hear it but I have my own creative studio, and in my creative studio I support my fellow entrepreneurs as well as others who are just looking for graphics that to complete their vision and to support their mission. And I just really um, love being in spaces like this, because this is the other side of the passion, is we're co-creating gentle and intentional conversations, and really just inviting you to slow down, soften, and reconnect with yourself. And as always, I remind that there is no need to do or achieve here, really only an invitation to arrive exactly as you are in this moment. And to begin the conversation today, wanted to share a poem with you. It's called Inner Light. It's by Dana Folds. And it reads like this: The inner light is always with me. When I slip beneath the agitated surface of the mind, I find it, like a fragment of the Big Bang, still glowing. This energy doesn't depend on health or strength or even mental peace. It isn't a product of belief, nor is it me in any egocentric way of speaking. The inner light is always there, waiting to be felt and seen, waiting for me to release it through my choice to be still and recognize its presence. The illumination grows the more I let it go. Like radiant heat, it flows out of me, flows from my whole being, without leaving me depleted. We're all like this, whether we know it yet or not. Tiny stars glowing in the dark.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane, for sharing the poem for today. So welcome again, everybody. Um, we welcome you into this moment, into the fullness, which will soon be of the longest day that we have, into the warmth that surrounds us. and into the quiet presence of your own life as it is right now. The solstice marks a peak. The light has been building day by day, reaching its fullest expression. In nature, this is not just a moment of brightness, it is a signal, a threshold, a point where something has come into form and where quietly something begins to shift. Because even at the height of the light, the cycle is already turning. We are part of these same rhythms. Life does not move in a straight line, it moves in cycles, in beginnings, in growth, in fullness, and in change. There are times of movement and action where things are set in motion, and there are times that ask something different of us, a staying, attending, a willingness to be with what is already here as it continues to take shape. Nature shows us that growth is not constant expansion. There comes a point where what we have been growing begins to settle, to deepen, to prepare for what comes next, not because anything is ending, but because life is always moving forward in its own timing. And so this moment invites us into awareness, not to push ahead, not to figure anything out, but to recognize what is already present, to notice where life is moving through you, where something is beginning, and where something is already in motion, asking for your attention, your care, or your presence. The light we see today is not only around us, it is something we experience within us as well. Clarity, energy, awareness, a sense of being alive and awake to our own lives. Sometimes that light feels strong and visible, and sometimes it is quieter, less obvious. But like the cycles of nature, it does not disappear. It shifts, it changes, and it remains. So we begin here at this point of fullness and quiet turning, not separate from it, but within it, all together on this longest day, honoring the light outside and honoring the light, honoring the light within.
It was lovely, Jan. Thank you for that little inspiration for sure. It's summer. I mean, I know for most of the people on this call, it's summer. There might be one exception to that. However, but summer is just it's just such a beautiful time of the year, in the sense that there's such an abundance of, it becomes into like full abundance of greenery and growth and flowers and the whole thing. It just the amount of sunshine, which in the winter months here, especially in North America, we it seems sometimes that it can be very long. Especially in the north, the north and the northeastern part of the continent. So it's just summer has I don't know, there's a richness to it that, you know, um, starts blooming in spring, but when summer comes, it just feels like, I know there's just so much abundance that's to be had. Like it feels that way to me anyway.
Absolutely. I agree. There is this fullness, and the word full comes to mind. Um, that happens. Um, and I think about the time, like the fact that, it is the peak, like the Sunday, summer solstice.
Mm.
Um, it will be the peak of that light, and then it will slowly start to decrease over time. And I look at that day or this time is that kind of is leading up. And then there is a gradual shift, a gradual change. And I think one is that it's gradual, and I think most change, a lot of change is. I mean, we think of change as happening at one particular point, it's like, oh, I changed. but really there was the build up to it and then the coming off of whatever it was. And really, it's not as, you know, it's not an exact moment in time, really. It's really much more gradual than that. And I think that whole idea of that fullness, like it's like there's an energy that moves it up. It's like you can feel it moving to that point where things are, like you said, green and full and lush. And then, it remains. And then there's a gradual change where, we will come into autumn and winter, but we will first move into harvest, which is really that whole idea of nurturing that which we've already planted right now
Hmm.
and keeping it going versus, shifting to something next, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea. I was just thinking about because it's like where summer feels like this is the growth of abundance is, and of course in the fall is the harvesting of the abundance, right? That's for us, at least in this climate, that's how it is. And it's interesting, right? And it's just I think just looking at the cycles of life as they are, right? You just realize I like this the whole concept of saying it's like, yes, it's the longest day on Sunday. Um but it's like in the gradual change that happens. And sometimes those it's like life in general, right? We don't always focus on it that way, but sometimes the changes can be very subtle and take a long period of time. And as we know, sometimes things pop up in life that even though maybe they shouldn't always, they still surprise us. So um, in both a positive and sometimes a negative light, depending on what the situation is. But it's interesting the cycles of life and just realizing, you know, um, that life in general and light continues on in its own way, in its own natural way. And there's a bit of a letting go of that too, because we have no control over those cycles that are happening. They just continue and continue as they have for our ancestors and as they do today, right? So,
Yeah, I love what you shared about, like, we don't have it, like we're part of it, but it happens. And um I don't know that I ever really thought about nature and what nature is doing in regard to that exact, this exact time. And in one of the articles, it talked about trees and how the solstice is a signal to trees as to, like, what will happen. If it's warm before the solstice, the trees change color and shed their leaves in a particular way. And if it's warm after the solstice, like going forward in the upcoming months, like in June, later June or July, how that sort of pushed out. And so it was so interesting to me that nature's response to the solstice itself, um, as being so much a part of that. And I think as we've moved out of the natural, like, and spent more time indoors and less time outside, I think we have separated ourselves from that nature in a lot of ways.
yes.
And really, to me, these times of like solstice celebrations or solstice are just an invitation to move back in and be one with nature and to recognize, and maybe even honor those periods, to connect back again with nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, because in these climes it tends to be, cold and harsh often in the winter time. Summer is just, it always feels like an invitation to be outside more. I always, looking at it from just a purely visual sense. I mean, what in sense, what can be more inviting than lush greenery and flowers and animal life, activity, birds, all of these things just inviting us to come and observe and take it in with gratitude.
Yeah, it's true. It is much more conducive to being outside. And enjoying, depending on where you live, and enjoying that nature and that environment, more than we probably do if, during other seasons. Um, so there is that invitation.
Absolutely. And speaking to the fact for the inner light, I know part of it is the essence of who we are, but I mean, being out and experiencing the light and the abundance of nature, and then being able to take some of that essence back into ourselves, it also brings a lightness to us as well. And as you were mentioning, that sometimes we've forgotten that we're part of nature and we all have influence one upon the other, whether it be plants or animals or people, which of course are animals of a sense too. So it just we've forgotten um, how important we are into the chain of life and the cycles of life.
Hmm. Yeah, we're so much more a part of nature than we actually even sort of acknowledge. Um, many of us, or a lot of people anyway. I don't know that we go out in nature and think of ourselves as being part of that, being part of the whole ecosystem. Obviously, we influence it and we partake in it, but I think we've actually separated ourselves to a great extent from it. And so I think that the summer, this time, is a great opportunity to actually enjoy it and to actually honor that sort of connection that you can have with Mother Nature. I mean, and with the solstice. And when you were talking about inner light, is thinking about the effects of light on the body and the fact that we actually absorb light, and how basically beneficial it is to our physiological systems. That light exposure, we know that it sets our circadian rhythm, and we also, it warms the body and actually warms the muscles and the tissues. And so we actually need that light, in a physiological sense. And so I think that time of year, that change, and that honoring that cycle, with the whole idea that it sets you up, and it is very nourishing.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely nurturing. And I loved how well a few of the articles spoke to the whole idea where it's like talked about, summer solstice, it's like about like embracing that growth and sort of harnessing some of that energy that comes um, from the sun. Just I don't know. It can often be a lightener and a brightener of mood. So whether we realize it or not, physiologically it's coming in, and then it's also coming into our bodies, and hopefully we have moments of joy that we can experience and appreciate both with nature and with people around us, perhaps gatherings, etc. So it's just, as they say, it's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think that you bring up something really interesting, and that's the whole idea of like the sun and the mood, and how it affects us, like on a emotional or psychological, like a mind level, of how often, you come across a gray day and you feel really down.
Hmm.
And people who suffer from things like seasonal affect disorder, when it's very, very dark, and they get very down or very depressed. And so this whole idea of sun being sort of like an uplifter of mood, of, and if you think about it, well, you shouldn't, no, that's not, I'm just thinking of all the pictures that have like a smiling sun.
Yes.
And
Well,
so,
it's
yeah.
it's kind of part of it, right? I mean, in most cases, when we see the sun or we feel the sun, you know, it puts a smile on our face, so it's kind of suitable that they make the little emojis with the smiling sun, or at
Mhm.
least, at least that's how I look at it.
Right.
There you go, Jan.
Okay, thank you. I was waiting. Excuse me.
But yeah, it's just what an amazing time. I mean, historically, the yeah, see, Darlene's saying sunshine holds such a healing energy. So Darlene's gonna go out and sit on her deck this morning today. That's what she's doing. That's how she's gonna gain the healing energy from the sun.
I did
Um,
that the other day.
oh, see?
Yeah, it was really nice outside and I didn't have to, be confined to my room, but I just went outside and sat there with my eyes closed. And I probably sat there for a good half an hour just taking in, even though I couldn't breathe through my nose, but just trying to take in the sound of the leaves but the warmth of the sun just felt like the best vitamin D pill ever. It
Yes.
just was, yeah, so rejuvenating and so hopeful.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up the word hope because I think it
Yes.
is hopeful. Um, there is this, I think that, you get up and you have the day like you're talking about, Mary Jane, that we have, the same weather here today. It's, blue sky, pretty, cool out, not very humid. And there is a kind of, it puts a little pep in your step as you walk out the door.
I love that. I haven't heard that phrase for so long. I love it. Pep in your step. I love it. But it's very true, and it's an amazing thing too, when we think about all the different cycles, and just, speaking to the historically about, how our ancestors are really in tune with things like the solstice and the equinox seasons. And so it's just interesting how, it's come to, from a solstice perspective, it's come to be, from that perspective, just to, it's a time that's, it's like life-giving. It's regenerating, it's rejuvenating. It's just the whole thing. And so it's what a beautiful cycle, both inside and out. Yes, the circular star.
The circular star and the cycle. I mean, I think something about cycles. I mean, I think we use cycles a lot. I mean, I think every sort of culture, religion uses cycles and, you know, for a lot of their practices. But also there's this whole idea of like the whole idea of a cycle, the fact that, when you've gone through a hard time that, in the back of your mind, you're always like, oh, okay, well, things are, we all have life has cycles and we go through periods in life that we have cycles of certain things. And I think that does give us hope in the fact that it will. I think that's what gets us through winter is the knowing of spring and summer coming. And I think that it also, once the summer arrives, I mean, I love autumn. I love the fall season. So to me, it's, looking forward to that kind of brisk, kind of cool weather that's not frigid cold, but like sweater weather that just kind of feels good and is refreshing on another level. And you go out and you're like, the leaves are changing or whatever. And so I think that brings us another aspect. So that whole idea of, the cycles of life, the cycles of existence, the cycles of nature. Um, we work off of cycles anyway, just even the moon cycles that happen throughout the month. It's all based on a cyclical nature. And I think cycles are very supportive and very healing for us.
Yes. Well, one would certainly hope so. We hope we don't get. I feel like what am I channeling, my Darlene? Uh,
Well, I coughed earlier, so I felt like I was
it's
channeling my
it's sympathy.
sympathy cough there.
But yeah, it is very true what you're saying. It's just, but it's beautiful. The just the whole realizing that the cycles remain the same as much as we may change through time.
I love that because they're constant, and those cycles, the cycles of nature. And I think that amongst, you know, there's a constancy of change, you know. So even within that, there is this idea of like there's it will change, it will shift again, but there is a constancy to that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, I don't know what's going on with my voice, but we'll try. But yeah, it is a constancy of change. Boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and but it's such a beautiful thing, and you know, if we can just harness some of that energy and bring that inside, we know we have our own inner light because that's what, that's the beauty that we contribute to the world. But like anything, like when we talk about nurturing and self-nurturing and giving kindness to self, I mean, I kind of look at it the same way as just bringing that energy of light from the external into the internal and then back again. It's just that reciprocal sort of relationship between us and it all. But yeah, it's just I know some of the articles were it was interesting. They were saying that, as much as we might be doing more during these time frames of the solstice and summer, etc. Um, it's like they put a great emphasis on that this is really can be an amazing time for not just action but observation, taking it all in. And so that's kind of where I think the idea that I had with gratitude is as like taking in the beauty of the light of the moments of the experiences, whatever they may be, just bringing that in and observing it with gratitude and realizing that, you know, as much as things are going on, as many things can change, that we still can come back to that light and we can bring that light back into us. It's just, I love the whole idea. It's like a spiral.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm reminded that, so when we were talking about like the exposure to the sun and just like taking it all in, I'm reminded of every pet I've ever had loves to lie in the sun.
Yes.
I mean, loved it. All my cats that I've had, Tonka, even with his black coat, would like lay out there in the sun for long periods of time. I would have to force him to come in. At one point, I talked to my vet about it because I was talking to her about vitamin D and whether dogs need vitamin D. And
Mm,
she said, not really, not this, they don't use vitamin D like we do. They don't absorb it through the sun, from the sun. But she said that it helps with digestion and metabolism. They use the heat of the sun. So I thought that,
interesting.
yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's like, okay. It's
I love that, Darlene. So she has to flip her baked potato. No, it's so true. Like he would lay out there for hours, and or like a long time, and I'd be like, "Buddy, you have to come in," like, and I would force him to come inside because it was just like so hot outside, and he was perfectly happy.
yes, I must admit it too when 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 we had our dog also dark coat and she also used to like to lie in the sun and I would be thinking, aren't you like melting? Like, because it's like there's so with the fur and dark color, it's like okay. But yeah, I don't know. I just it's almost like they have like a innate sense of their ancestry of being not house animals like us, of being outdoors and just absorbing the energy of nature. I think for them it's just a natural experience for them. It's normal for them. It's in their DNA, so to speak.
Mhm. And then on the other hand, I think it's also like their exposure to the earth itself, to lying on the ground, which I think, if you talk about before we domesticated them and brought them inside, I mean, they were predominantly outside in contact with the ground. And I think that's the other element. I mean, well, I used to lie on my deck or my patio, um, and my cats were not outdoor cats. So I always only had indoor cats. So it wasn't, but so it was the sun, but for when it was outside, a lot of the time would be, on the grass or you know, on whatever surface, he wanted to. And so it was very different. He was never a water dog, though. He didn't like water, Tonka. Like he liked to drink water, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yes, I know,
I like
I know,
like
I know what you mean.
water, yeah,
Yeah,
like
or
trains, trucks.
or Silk was not a water dog either. So
My last dog, Casey, was a water dog. I mean, we would hike in the winter and she would lay down in every puddle and she would come back and there'd be icicles hanging from her belly, like it was so cold. She loved any body of water. Like it was just like, Tonka, no.
no,
Then it's just like, no, I don't want to go into water. I don't know what that is.
yes, yes, exactly.
And then,
I think for us, Silk associated water with bath time, and she wasn't a fan. So she knew it was inevitable, but yes, not a fan.
and not
So
a, it's very funny. But
like it's like water, no, I'm running.
yeah, it's so funny. They have this innate intelligence that they haven't lost, and there's still so much, no matter how much we try to domesticate them, there's still so much, of who they are and their, depending on their breed
Hmm.
and everything, there's still so much a part of the outside world, of the natural world, much
Yes.
more so than us. Um,
Yeah, sometimes we kind of have to prod ourselves into being out there. Some of us more than others, but yeah, when we do, the benefit of just absorbing that light and being um, part of that is amazing.
mhm.
But yeah, is
And I love the fact that this time was considered so sacred by so many traditions and so many people of so many backgrounds, um, that this time the solstices were really, um, very important and very important marks in time
yes.
from different structures that were built, um, based on Stonehenge and others, like, some of the ruins and temples in Mexico, which were all
Mhm.
built, um, to to work with the angle of the sun and of light itself, acting as some sort of, really interesting and really spiritual, I don't know, portals.
Yes. Yeah, well that's definitely a thing. I mean, there was an there was an honoring of both the light and the lack of light, right? As the solstices and the equinoxes all rotated in cycles. But yeah, how life itself has been um, sort of built around those cycles is it's just interesting and as we know, we have our own internal cycles of light and dark, and sometimes they happen simultaneously, which is quite an interesting feat, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm reminded of the Tulum, the Mayan ruins, with,
Yes.
you know, the astronomical alignment, with the summer solstice and the fact that, you know, the sun would create an exact line as it's shown through one of the openings in the
Yes.
tower. And then, it was so precisely created
Yes.
and with such intention to honor the light. And I think about the earth and what would happen if we had no sunlight. I mean, there would be no plant life, and therefore be no us,
That's
because
true.
we would have no oxygen basically. And I mean, possibly we would have developed in some other way,
Yes.
and been created in some other way, but the life as we know it and our existence would not have happened,
Absolutely.
uh, you know, through that whole evolutionary process of being reliant on the sun. Al, please.
Yeah, interesting. You talk about cycles and the path, the ecology of life. So when it comes to the light is the main source. The sun is the most powerful in the entire planet and gives rays to, and Earth is the third source of the planet from the sun. So basically, yeah, it comes to like Greek's acronym for light. So light is standing for the lives, illuminating growth, hastening twilight. So this will come to the part where lives, because every day our lives will be illuminated, where there's light. So we can't just stay in the dark most of the time. And that's where the growth comes in, where the seeds are put on the ground without light, like oxygen and all that, they will not grow into the plant or tree. So, and after the light from the sunlight is up from sunrise, then after that hastening into the twilight, where this captures the profound beauties of our life's transitions. It, it speaks on how we spend our best years, shining and evolving, inevitably leading to the reflective, transient peace of our twilight years. Life illuminating from a scientific perspective. Illumination is a fundamental part of our lives. From the sunlight that wakes us up to the artificial light that connects communities and keeps natural environments vibrant. Philosophically, it refers to the emotional energy we draw from natural light and the resilience we find when we metaphorically follow the light during dark times. When you talk about growth, that's why you're talking about cycles, are deeply connected to light. Metaphorically, resilience and spiritual growth allows us to learn from our treading paths, just as sunflowers symbolize endurance and the push towards the light, even in face of opposites and adversity. Hastening twilight represents both the illumination of the lower atmosphere after the sun is below the horizon and the symbolic transient stage of life. It is a appealing yet appalling time of life to reflect on yesteryears, realize the paths we have tread, and peacefully accept the passage of time. And I put the acronym of LIGHT in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al. That was wonderful. And yes, please share the acronym and I love the word that you use, illuminating, because I think that that's really, that to me is this idea of, when we are aware, when we sit, when we're quiet, so much is illuminated. I mean, I think that's why, in so many spiritual practices, I mean, we talk about the light within, honoring the light within, honoring our own light, honoring the light within other people. Like there's something about that light and its ability to reveal that which, often we don't want to see. Often we, for whatever reason, we've blocked ourselves from seeing, and being able to illuminate it. And I think that's also why a lot of practices which from all many styles of different, spiritual practices actually created heat within the body, heat within, were done in, saunas from shamanic healings, and all this stuff was to expose and to bring warmth and heat and light into that which, maybe we weren't ready or we could not see. And Seamus.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. And as usual, thanks for a lovely conversation. And again, condolences, Jan, and hope you're doing well with the passing of Tonka as well last week.
Thank you.
We're all with you and thinking about you, honestly. And today's conversation, I suppose the one word that's coming to mind is ease, like the contrast of, and you just touched on it there, I think, and parts of the conversation so far around everything is changing, constantly changing, but the pathway to kind of that inner light is just being still and being at ease. And it kind of reminds me of when you were talking about Tonka sitting in the sun, and I think Coco loves sitting in the sun as well, and just being at ease and being happy, just being at ease and doing what feels natural. And reminds me, that, when we're striving, we're losing. And I think that's the balance. And, part of the cycle of life is there's a time to strive and there's a time to be at ease. And, dogs, I think, and animals in general have figured out, to trust the cycles of life, I suppose, to know when to sit and be at ease and know when to go and hunt or know when to, do whatever they feel is the right thing to do. And sometimes human beings, I think we strive and strive and strive and push and get lost in the striving of life, and sometimes forget about the power of the inner light. And even, when we were speaking there about the inner light, often the analogy of the North Star was used in business as like our North Star is X, Y, and Z. This is, this is our guiding light externally. This is where we shoot and aim our strategy, our teams, our lives, or whatever. But I think ease, as the conversation was evolving, I was thinking like, you know what? Ease is the doorway to the inner light of less striving and more following the example of our pets and animals, of knowing is the way to a kind of the vast and empty of within ourselves, or the contradiction, like of when you're still, you have access to the emptiness, but the vastness of that emptiness. And I think that's kind of what's available to us through the practice of simply noticing the striving and making an intentional choice to simply be at ease and to experience what happens when we connect with the inner light and the power and the depth and the foundation that emerges when we experience, I suppose, what it feels like to connect to that inner light when we're so busy often chasing the external light, I guess, and striving towards all sorts of objectives that somehow seem shallow when we compare it to the connection to that inner light and the purpose that comes from that, I suppose.
Yeah, one of the things that when you were talking, Seamus, and thank you so much, and thank you for the condolences, was this whole idea of ease, and then also like honoring, which was Mary Jane's word, I think, last year, was honoring this whole idea of, is it the right time? Like, I think there are times when, not saying we need to strive, but we might be more action oriented. And so we need that, obviously, because we need to move forward. But also there are times when we need to rest. And so it's just that honoring, but also the whole idea of like this idea of ease. And I think that it is true. We get very pulled out into the world and we lose sight of, and we resist what's really needed. I think resistance is is a huge thing. As I think, we have a particular way of navigating the world, and we know what the world has sort of expects, quote unquote, of us. And I think the thought of doing something different, like we resist that. There's like this tension of about stepping outside what may be considered the norm, and we resist. We may know we need it, but we resist it. It's kind of like we know that it's good for us and we know what's required, but like there's this hesitancy and this kind of like, oh my gosh, like, and so we resist what we really need. That's what came to my mind. And Mary Jane, you unmuted for a moment.
Yes, I did. But then I realized that you were continuing, so I didn't want to interrupt. So yeah, I had to put it in because
I
you brought
know.
up the
Thank
word
you.
resistance. And it's so true how resistance is futile. I mean, it came from, popular creative entertainment, but it really is futile because we can resist, but as we know in the cycles of change, it continues.
It does. I mean, eventually, I think what ends up happening is you end up having to do it anyway. I mean, you resist, but eventually, it's like you resist rest. Eventually, you get sick.
That's true. Yes,
You
as Austin
resist
says, what we resist persists. Yes,
it. That's right.
that is true. Because
You
whether
know,
we want it to or not, it just keeps coming back and back and back. It's like the spiral, right? Was it Dante's Inferno?
right. And I think, the more resist, I mean, when we don't rest, we get sick. When we have something that's bothering us or some sort of emotion that's deep, when we resist dealing with it, it ends up, bubbling to the surface anyway. At some point it comes out in some form. If you think about energy, because the energy needs to come out in
Yes.
whatever form. And so I think that whole idea of resisting came to mind, of that tension. And I've often said that I don't know that resistance is necessarily bad at times. That tension can be good. It reminds me of the we used to say in yoga that you have like muscle resistance, like when you create tension in that muscle, it also tones. So there's always this fine line about how much, like, when's too much and when's too little, but you do want to create that sort of solid path, because otherwise it's like a river that has no banks and the water overflows
Hmm.
along the sides. So if you want to direct that energy, you have to kind of create almost like guardrails or channels that hold it in. And so resistance isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I think it's also sometimes protection. When something's too much, I think we resist, which is where I've been for some of my week this week, as
Yeah.
I sort of navigate this loss of like, almost resisting feeling in certain circumstances, because I know, like getting on a meeting, and I know if I think about it, then I'm going to break into tears and I'm not going to be able to talk. So I'm just sitting there and saying, okay, well, not now. I'll come back to you. I'm not totally avoiding, but saying, okay, I'm going to avoid at this point because I don't want to lose it.
Yeah. Which, but yes, understandable because I mean we all have that sort of, well, it is a resistance in a way, right? Of like putting things aside temporarily. Um, but it's always a beautiful thing to be in a space where people, are gently holding you and your heart and wherever you are at that moment, whatever that cycle is for you. It's just knowing that. And so that's why we appreciate all of you here. And I have to comment too. Austin was saying a gentle reminder, are you ready yet? Well, yes, sometimes the reminders from universe are quite gentle and sometimes they are not so gentle. Probably after they've reminded us a number of times gently. Um, I can speak from my own experience with being Yeah. Darlene's necklace down the drain. Oh my goodness, I forgot about that. Yes. It's like, you know, just know that whatever you want to call God, spirit, source, all that is in universe is they're all it's listening. So as Darlene learned with her necklace going down the drain. But yes, from my own experience, it's just, when, being, bullied at work for 2.5 years, realizing, and then suddenly being, restructured as they called it, out the door. It's like suddenly realizing it's like, well, universe, you have quite the sense of humor.
Mhm. Yeah,
As I wasn't listening, apparently you needed to give me a little shove out the door, literally.
literally. Yeah, I think that that's what happens. And we talked about it last night in our session. I shared that I think that that's what the body does, right? The
Yes.
body is constantly giving us messages and signals or whatever. And much of the time we choose to ignore it until like we end up in bed for, a few weeks because the back goes out or because, and so we don't listen. My old acupuncturist Kathy used to say that, when I was talking about a change and then she would close, may it happen, like whatever that change happen, whatever the circumstance may happen with kindness and ease, like always at the end, like I want this to happen, but I want to make this transition, but let it happen with kindness and ease as opposed to with, something
Mm,
dramatically
yes.
hard happening. And so it should happen with kindness and ease.
That's such a beautiful way of of placing it. And yeah, what a beautiful like topic today. And just thank you all for bringing your beautiful light and energy to this space, because you all are an important piece of what came forward today for the conversation. And just loving that. And you know perhaps it's an opportunity now to move forward into meditation, Jen.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, and thank you. It was a beautiful conversation. So let's begin by just arriving into this like maybe reflective moment you've been sharing. If it feels comfortable, allow your body to settle, whether you are seated, lying down, walking. Let your hands rest easily, perhaps on your legs or gently at the center of your chest. Take a slow, natural breath in and an easy breath out. No need to change anything, just noticing that you are here. Allow your awareness to come into your body. Notice where your body is supported, the weight of you being held by the chair, by the ground beneath you. Let your shoulders relax. Let your jaw unclench. Let your face rest. Bring your attention to your breath, not controlling it, just noticing it. The natural rhythm of the inhale and the exhale, its own cycle. We are just a few days away from the summer solstice, a time when in nature everything has been moving toward fullness. Day by day, light has been increasing. Growth has been unfolding, often quietly, often without effort. And even now, just before that peak, there is already a subtle shift, a beginning, a reminder that life moves in cycles. See if you can sense that within yourself, not by thinking, but by noticing. Where in your life does something feel like it is just beginning? Something quietly taking shape? And where are you already in the middle of something, something that is just asking for your presence, your intention, not to push it forward, but to simply stay with it. There's nothing you need to do with this, just noticing. In nature, growth is not constant movement. There are moments of expansion and moments of settling, of deepening, of allowing. See if you can feel it, this sense of allowing. Letting your breath be as it is, letting your body be as it is, letting this moment be as it is. And then bring your attention gently to the center of your chest, not imagining anything, just sensing the subtle movement of breath here, the quiet presence. There is steadiness within you, not something you have to create, something that is already here. Sometimes it feels clear and strong, sometimes quieter, less obvious. But like the cycles of nature, it remains. Rest here for a few moments. Nothing to change, nothing to figure out, just being. And when you're ready, begin to deepen your breath slightly. Gently bring your awareness back to your body, your surroundings. Perhaps a small movement of your head, your shoulders, your fingers, your toes. And in your own time, allowing your eyes to open, carrying with you this sense of presence, this awareness of where you are and the quiet unfolding of your own life.
Lovely and peaceful, Jan. So just before we close, wanted to share a solstice invocation for love and new beginnings. Divine light that shines within and around me. On this day of radiance and warmth, I open my heart to joyful new beginnings. May the seeds of intention I plant today be nourished by hope, compassion, and trust. Let love find me in all forms as I learn to love myself more deeply. May my relationships be healed, my heart softened, and my path lit with clarity and peace. I call in connection, sacred, kind, and real, that supports the highest version of myself and others. Just as the sun returns again and again, may I rise, unafraid, authentic, and whole. And so it is.
Thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate and value that you hear and that you come each week. As with all these Friday sessions, they're on the YouTube channel if you want to revisit. We'll post the poetry and the intention from today in the comments if you want it. We have next Thursday, the last of our sessions for the summer series with Darlene. So that's really exciting. And then otherwise, we love you all. We hope you have a great week. Happy summer solstice. do something that reminds you of the sun. And we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Blessings all. Thank you so much for being here.
Guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.